بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد. We're currently discussing the ring structure of section 4 of Surah Kahf, which is a story section. So last week we began this discussion, and our discussion related to the ayats numbered from number 32 to number 39. Well, more than that, sorry. From number 32 to 44. Okay, that's the section we are discussing. Last week we already discussed the connection between ayats 32, 33 to ayat 44. Then we discussed the connection of ayat 34 to ayat 43. Okay? And also we discussed ayat 35's connection with ayat 42. So each ayat from the beginning was connected to an ayat to the end of the section. Okay? So it's like 32, 33 connects to 34. To 44, sorry. 34 connects to 43. 35 connects to 42. Now from today, we're going to discuss how 36 is connected to 40, 41. And how 37 is connected to 39, and then the ayat around which all of these ayats have encompassed what this ayat reads. Okay? So now let's begin our discussion here from ayat number 36. So in ayat number 36 it says, وَمَا أَظُنُّ السَّاعَةَ قَائِمَةً وَلَئِن رُّدِدتُّ إِلَى رَبِّي لَأَجِدَنَّ خَيْرًا مِنْهَا مُنْقَلَبًا. Remember, this is the story about these two companions, two friends. And at the initial part of the story, it is the wealthier friend that is speaking about his assets. And in doing so, he also divulges his view on life and the hereafter. So he says here, وَمَا أَظُنُّ السَّاعَةَ قَائِمَةً وَلَئِن رُّدِدتُّ إِلَى رَبِّي لَأَجِدَنَّ خَيْرًا مِنْهَا مُنْقَلَبًا. That I do not think that the hour is ever going to be established. Okay, meaning the day of Qiyamah. وَلَئِن رُّدِدتُّ إِلَى رَبِّي, and if I was to be returned to my Lord, لَأَجِدَنَّ خَيْرًا مِنْهَا مُنْقَلَبًا, I would definitely find a better outcome than this, meaning than the garden that I have and all the assets that I have right now. So in ayat number 36, we have some words of what we can call kufra, right? Words of disbelief, a speech of disbelief from the wealthier companion. And this is connected now, as I said, to ayats 40 and 41. So let's see what's in ayat 40 and 41. It says there, فَعَسَى رَبِّي أَن يُؤْتِيَنِي خَيْرًا مِنْ جَنَّتِكَ وَيُرْسِلَ عَلَيْهَا حُسْبَانًا مِنَ السَّمَاءِ فَتُصْبِحَ صَعِيدًا زَلَقًا أو يصبح ماؤها غورا فلن تستطيع له طلبا. فَعَسَى رَبِّي, that may be my Rabb. Now in this is now the speech of the other friend, okay, the lesser fortunate friend, and he's saying, فَعَسَى رَبِّي, and maybe my Lord, أَن يُؤْتِيَنِي خَيْرًا مِنْ جَنَّتِكَ, may give me something better than your garden. وَيُرْسِلَ عَلَيْهَا حُسْبَانًا مِنَ السَّمَاءِ, whilst he may send upon your garden a torment from the skies, فَتُصْبِحَ صَعِيدًا زَلَقًا, and it will become a barren wasteland. أو يصبح ماؤها غورا فلن تستطيع له طلبا, or he may cause the water of your garden to be absorbed, فلن تستطيع له طلبا, and you would not be able to seek it out, meaning you won't be able to find a way to bring it out from the earth after it's absorbed and it is sunken straight down to the bottom of the earth. So now here we see words of faith, right, from the other companion. Now these ayats are not right one after the next, okay? One is, as we can see, one is ayat 36, and the next ayats that we are discussing are 40, 41. So ayats 37, 38, 39 are all in between these two. So we are connecting the ends of the surah to one another and coming inwards, right? Where we connected the beginning, which was ayat 32 and 33, to the ending ayat of the section, which was 44. So we are coming in. But just by hearing the translation, we can already see, feel, and know a connection between the two. Where one companion is saying, meaning the wealthier one that I first discussed in ayat 36, is talking about the akhirah, that he doesn't believe in the akhirah. And even if he was to go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or to his Rabb, as he's saying, that he will find something even better than the present garden. Okay? And the other companion is also saying basically the same thing. فَعَسَى رَبِّي أَن يُؤْتِيَنِي خَيْرًا مِنْ جَنَّتِكَ, that maybe my Lord may give me something better than your Jannah. So both are expecting something better in the Akhirah. Okay? But one has belief and one has kufr. So you see, both are basically saying the same thing at two different parts of the surah, of the same section. And they're also saying the same thing with two different perspectives, right? One is saying that I don't even believe in a God, and He's blessed me here on this earth. So even if there is a God and there's supposed to be another life, I'll be blessed over there also. Okay? And the other one's perspective is that, right, that because I have hope in my good actions, that maybe when I reach the hereafter, I will be granted something even better than your garden. So you see, both are saying the ayats are like carbon copies of one another. This companion is saying something, the other one is saying the same thing. Okay? But their perspectives are different. From different angles, they're talking about the same thing. And then, this one said he doesn't believe in an akhirah, and he believes that he'll be granted better in the hereafter. So, in the ayats 40 and 41, right, this companion is explaining to him that maybe my Lord might give me something better than you, but when I reach the akhirah, and right here in this world, وَيُرْسِلَ عَلَيْهَا حُسْبَانًا مِنَ السَّمَاءِ فَتُصْبِحَ صَعِيدًا زَلَقًا أَوْ يُصْبِحَ مَاؤُهَا غَوْرًا فَلَنْ تَسْتَطِيعَ لَهُ طَلَبًا. Basically, maybe your garden may perish right here, and it will be the end, right, result of your garden. This might just finish off here. So, your whole analogy, right, that I've been blessed in this world, well, you may feel you've been blessed in this world, but you haven't reached your, where you can say, your ending, your end result has not been reached yet in this world. So even how can you just claim that I'm so blessed in this world? Just because the bounties of this world and the assets of this world are very temporary also. A person can be, you know what I mean, flying very high this year, and next year, you know what I mean, investments go bad, things happen, and he might lose nearly everything he has, right? I was reading about these Ambani brothers from India, right? Two brothers who were both, you know, these billionaires sort of people, you know. One brother, you know what I mean? His whole, well, it was one big company and they split it between two brothers, and one brother was able to build and more, and the other one, he had a good set of billions too, but he ended up bankrupt. So, if a billionaire can go bankrupt in this world, then who else won't, right? This is the condition of the world. So it's like this brother in 4041 is explaining to his wealthier friend that, how can you really be talking about this analogy, right? That because you're blessed here, you'll be given something better in the hereafter. How do you know you're even blessed here, right? You're only talking about your present condition. You don't know what's going to come afterwards anyhow. So he's reminding him of that. Okay? But as I said, these two ayats are not like one after the next. But we still see the ring structure of the Quran when we came in from both ends, how both of these ayats relate to one another so perfectly. Okay? It is as if this part of his speech, which Allah mentioned, of the wealthier companion's speech, which Allah mentioned in ayat 36, the exact answer for that is also mentioned in ayats 40-41. But the way it's mentioned is not like, he said this and then he replied this. No. Allah, how Allah, what you can say, structured the whole conversation is that Allah mentioned the whole conversation of the wealthier brother. And then he mentioned the whole conversation of the lesser fortunate brother. But as we can see, whatever part of the conversation of the wealthier brother came first, right? It somehow relates to what Allah says over the other side. Okay? In a perfect way. Right? Last week we heard the other ayats, the ayats that came before, right? About where he was saying, Ma adhunnu an tabida hadhihi abada. Right? In this part. That he thought his garden was going to last forever. And on the other side, وَأُحِيطَ بِثَمَرِهِ he was mentioned. That what he was thinking about, the exact opposite happened. So you see how these ayats just connect with one another, although they are not in sequence. Right? One is on this side, one is on the other side. But they're coming in and they're connecting as we draw closer to the middle. Okay, so we're finished with this discussion between ayats 36 and 40-41. Now we go on to the next ayat, number 37 now. Okay? In ayat 37, this is where the conversation of the speech of the lesser fortunate brother actually begins. قال له صاحبه وهو يحاوره أكفرت بالذي خلقك من تراب ثم من نطفة ثم سواك رجلا. Right? And his companion said to him, meaning the lesser fortunate companion said to the richer one, وهو يحاوره, whilst he was in discussion with him, أكفرت بالذي خلقك من تراب. Do you disbelieve in that being who has created you from the earth? ثُمَّ مِن نُطْفَةٍ. Then he has developed you from a drop of sperm. ثُمَّ سَوَّاكَ رَجُلًا. Then he has formed you into a complete man, a complete human being, a complete person, rajul, right? A complete man. So this was what the lesser fortunate companion said to the richer one. Okay? And this was in ayat number 37. Now, completing the ring structure, this ayat now is related to ayat number 39. So let's see what is being said in ayat 39. وَلَوْلَا إِذْ دَخَلْتَ جَنَّتَكَ قُلْتَ مَا شَاءَ اللَّهُ لَا قُوَّةَ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ إِن تَرَنِي أَنَا أَقَلَّ مِنْكَ مَالًا وَوَلَدًا. And only if you said, if only إِذْ دَخَلْتَ, when you entered your garden, جَنَّتَكَ, قُلْتَ, you would have said, مَا شَاءَ اللَّهُ, that whatever is here is by the will of Allah, لَا قُوَّةَ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ, that there is no power except that which is with Allah. إِن تَرَنِي أَنَا أَقَلَّ مِنْكَ مَالًا وَوَلَدًا. If you see me as someone who is lesser than you with regards to wealth and offspring. Okay? So, you see in the ayat 37, he's mentioning in that ayat, do you really disbelieve in that being who has created you, right, from earth, then developed you from sperm, then formed you into a complete human being? This is all description of what? This is all description of the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? He created you from earth, from turab, meaning your initial creation, meaning of the human being as a sect, as a group. Okay, we were created from what? Our original, what you can say, material of creation is the earth, which Hazrat Adam alayhi salam was created from. So he mentions the original creation, meaning Adam alayhi salam's creation. Then he mentions the creation that happens here. That's the creation by the Amr of Allah that happened in the heavens. Okay? And then he mentions the creation that happens by the khalq, right? The creative power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is displayed on earth. That thumma min nutfatin. Then he developed you, meaning your generations were created through what? A drop of sperm, meaning one human being was created next. And this is how the human race is, population comes into existence on earth. And then he forms you, meaning even after you're born as a small infant, but then sawwaka rajula, right? He forms you into a grown human being, a grown person. So this is all done by what? By the quwwah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the quwwah and the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mainly described in ayat number 37. And it is done through what we call like a negative question, right? Do you really disbelieve in this, right? Being who has done all of this for you? And then the related ayah in 39, it says there that you should have said when you entered your garden, MashaAllah, that whatever is here is by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. La quwwata illa billah. Again, he's telling him about the quwwah and the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in ayat number 39. So we see both ayats relate to the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Alright? And this is more in an affirmative way. He's telling him in a positive way. Right? Not asking him like, do you disbelieve? We say you should have believed in this. Okay? So in one ayah there's like the negative, like, do you really disbelieve? And in this ayah there's the positive, there's the affirmative. That you should have said that that everything is here by the will of Allah. By the will of Allah means only if Allah wills it happens. This is also describing the power of Allah. And he says it very clearly, La quwwata illa billah. Right? That there's no power except that which is with Allah. In tarani ana aqalla minka malan, and it ends with the word walada. Right? If you see me lesser than you in wealth and in offspring. Okay? And which creative power of Allah that was mentioned in the first ayah? It was all about the nasl, the lineage of the human being. That we created you and your generations came into existence through the drop of sperm. And then you were fashioning from a baby into a full human being. Okay, so he's also, that the hint of that also comes back in ayat number 39. Right? That if you see me lesser than you in wealth and also in offspring. Okay, and in ayat 37, the creation of man, offspring also, is mentioned in there. So there's a clear connection between ayat 37 and 39. Alright, so we started this section from, as I said, it began from 32 and 33. Those two ayats were connected to the last ayat of this section, which was 42. Alright, quickly on the board we see 32, 33 mentions the bounties of the dunya, 44 mentioned the bounties of the hereafter. Then we came to 34. Ayat 34, in ayat 34, the richer companion was boasting of his wealth, manpower, children, etc. That's connected to the second last ayah, where in that ayah was mentioned that these same children and stuff the manpower he was boasting of, never came into his assistance, or there was no help to him when his garden was destroyed. Then we came to ayat 35, okay, which was last week. He thought his garden was going to last forever, which is connected at the back to ayat 42, in which it was said his garden was actually ruined. Then came to today's sabak, where we began from, Ayat 36 mentioned the words of kufr, where he says he doesn't believe in Qiyamah and he's going to be granted something better in the hereafter anyhow. Were connected to Ayat 40 and 41, where the companion also mentions that he also hopes of a better reward in the hereafter, but because of a different concept, a different way, he's hoping for a better reward. Right? They're two different analogies. And then he also reminds him that this world, you've not reached your final, you can say you've not reached the end result of this life yet. So how can you even draw your analogy that because you've been blessed here today, that you're going to be blessed in the hereafter, right? So that's how 36 and 40, 41 were connected. Then as I just mentioned, 37 is connected to 39. So we came in from both ends, right? So we've reached the middle now to Ayat 38, which stands alone in the middle. And what does Ayat 38 say? لَكِنَّهُ اللَّهُ رَبِّي وَلَا أُشْرِكُ بِرَبِّي أَحَدًا. But as for me, هُوَ اللَّهُ رَبِّي, He is Allah, that is my Lord, وَلَا أُشْرِكُ بِرَبِّي أَحَدًا. And I do not associate anyone as a partner to my Lord. Okay? So this is the core lesson of the whole story. Right? That one should believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and believe that nothing is, Allah has no partner, nothing has the power like Allah does. Meaning no materials and no other human being. Okay? That's the core lesson of the whole story. Right? That one companion had all his reliance on his garden and assets, whilst the other companion was warning him that, this sort of behavior of yours wasn't correct. Why isn't correct? Because this is what you should really believe in. What was mentioned in the core of the whole section. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is my Lord. وَلَا أُشْرِكُ بِرَبِّي أَحَدًا. And I do not associate anyone as a partner to Him. Meaning, none of my assets, none of my family, none of my friends, none of my connections. Nothing can benefit me or nothing can harm me besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Alright? So that's the core lesson that's right in the middle of the whole section. And this pattern came along from the beginning, right? We had ayats left over which were the cores of each section. If we go back to section number 1, right? When we connected the ayats from the front to the back, right? In that section, there were 2 ayats that were left out. First was Alhamdulillahi alladhi anzala ala abdihi al-kitab, right? That all praise be to that Allah who has revealed the kitab, the book, upon His servant. Okay? And then Allah also mentions in that section, the one ayat that was left out, مَا لَهُمْ بِهِ مِنْ إِلْمٍ وَلَا لِآبَائِهِمْ. Okay? That they had no knowledge, neither did their forefathers. So I mentioned there were it seems that there was 2 points Allah mentioned, 2 forms of guidance, either the Kitabullah or either the past, or you can say the customs of one's forefathers. Those were the 2 points singled out in the first section, the first khutbah, section 1, which was a lecture section. Then section 2, which was a story section, people of the cave. We made the whole ring, and then we came to an ayat which was basically left out. مَنْ يَهْدِ اللَّهُ فَهُوَ الْمُهْتَدُ وَمَنْ يُضْلِلْ فَلَنْ تَجِدَ لَهُ وَلِيًّا مُرْشِدًا. To whomsoever Allah guides, he'll be rightly guided, and whomsoever Allah misguides, he won't find a friend who will be able to guide him. Okay? And then we came to section 3, which was another lecture section. We constructed the whole ring, and then there we were left out with one ayah, right? And that ayah was قُلِ الْحَقُّ مِنْ رَبِّكُمْ فَمَنْ شَاءَ فَلْيُؤْمِنْ وَمَنْ شَاءَ فَلْيَكْفُرْ. That say to them that the haqq is from your Rabb. Whomsoever wishes should believe, and whomsoever wishes he can disbelieve. Okay? And then today, in section 4, we reach the point where it says, but as for me, وَاللَّهُ رَبِّي وَلَا أُشْرِكُ بِرَبِّي أَحَدًا. As for me, I've chosen what? Allah is my Rabb, and I will not associate anyone as a partner to Him. So you see how the leftover ayats are also connecting from each section. It began with you're given two choices. Alright? Either the kitab or the ways of your forefathers. And Allah also says, whoever wants hidayah, he will be granted hidayah. Who wants to be stubborn and be astray, well, let him be. Okay? Then Allah also says, let them know that the truth is really from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So whosoever wishes, he should believe. Who doesn't, is up to him. And then in this section, it tells you what you should do. Okay? The leftover ayah mentions that Allah is my Rabb, and I do not associate anyone as a partner to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. See how amazing that is? and the next thing, I skipped a lot because I wrote the ayats which are coming in the next section, which is the khutbah, right? And I had explained that section 4 is a story, and section 5 is a khutbah, right? It's like a lecture. Last week I was doing it, that whenever I mention a certain ayat, I related it also to section 5. And I said in that khutbah of section 5, it's actually like the commentary of the same story. Okay? So the story is one ruku long, right? If we look in the Qur'an, ayats 32 to 44 is one ruku, right? And then the tafsir section, the commentary, which is section 5, which is a very long khutbah, that stretches over like 3 rukus. Okay? So if 32 has an ayat in section 5 that is explaining it, it is obviously 44 also has an ayat in section 5 which will explain it. So you all understand what I'm trying to draw here? So it's like 32, 33 has a ring connection to 44. But then 32, 33 will also have ayats in section 5 which will describe him, and 44 will also have an ayats in section 5 which will give commentary on it. So meaning the ayats that are connected to 32, 33, which is ayat number 45 in section 5, okay, will now also be connected to the ayats that are connected to 44. And that will make the discussion very long and very confusing for the average man. But I'm just trying to say, draw the picture in your mind, like how many connections are within the Quran that are not in sequence either, right? They are like ring constructed connections and all type of ways. So it's like the whole Quran still is what we call Hakim. When I did the tafsir of Surah Yasin wal Qur'an al Hakim, that this Quran is like one meaning of Hakim is Hakam. Like when you say a house is Hakam, it is strong when all the bricks have been laid in a way that they intertwine with one another and they form a solid, what you can say, structure. So the Quran, the ayats also intertwine with one another. They are connected with one another in such a way that when it puts forward its subject and its lesson, it's a very strong lesson it's giving, right? A very strong point it'll put across to us. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the ability to understand the Quran and to see the inner beauty of the Quran. Subhanallah bihamdi. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika. Nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta.